Dorothy Wade. Um, I was born August 25th, 1937 in New Albany, Mississippi, at, at home with the midwife, my mother say.
Do you happen to know the midwife's name that delivered you?
Katie May Siddell, I think. My father's name was John Lee Wade. My mother's name, Lou Mae Jackson Wade. My mother was born in this area, but my father was born in Jackson, Tennessee. At church, I think, is where they met. And, well, I'm sure that's where they met. They talked about it all the time. Out at Old Grove in the county, in the old church, Old Grove Baptist Church. His mother died. He was born in Tennessee, but his father later moved to Gary, Indiana. And when his mother died, his father brought them back here, and he was reared by his uncle. Lonnie Jackson and Nana Mae Jackson. She was a Rattler, Nana Mae Rattler Jackson. And my father's parents lived in Gary, Indiana. His name was Matthew Wade and Evelina Wade. Ruby was the oldest, my sister. I'm the second child. Emma Wade, Shirley Wade, J.Q. Wade, Betty Wade, Grace Wade, and Dennis Wade. There were 9 of us. 3 are deceased. Ruby, my oldest one. Emma, the one next to me, and Dennis, the baby boy. Out at Walva, we lived down on the Wheelbank place when 6 of us were born down there. And my parents built a house at Walva and on the Wood Ferry Road, and that's where all of us grew up. We grew up there, we attended church there, and we used to have a little 2-room school that the storm destroyed. I think it was 49 or 50, I'm not really sure. After that, we went to school in the church. From then until they reorganized the school district. And that's when we started going to school in New Albany. They did in New Albany. I was in high school at that time.
What do most people call that area?
Oak Grove. That's what they call it.
And where is that?
Right outside of New Albany on County Road 121. Do you know where Walva Church is? Walva? You don't know where that is? Oh, that's on County Road 121. On one side of the highway, Highway 78, there were mostly black. And on the left side, leaving from here going towards Tupelo, was the Walva community. And it was mostly white. But the children all played together. Now they would get together and play. So kind of grew up together. My mother was a stay-home mother because she had too many children to do anything else. And my dad worked. He did a little bit of everything. He worked on the farm, then he worked at a lumber company, and also a truck driver. So he worked all the time. He was a sharecropper on the Wheelbanks farm.
And then when he worked for a lumber company, what lumber company was that?
Langford Lumber Company, and he also drove truck, delivering lumber, different states and places.
Where is Langford?
Right off of 78, straight down south on 78, east really, 78.
Is that is that in Lee County?
Union County.
Did your mom ever work after the kids were older?
She worked a little at Southland Motel, just as a maid of cleaning at Southland Motel after we all grown and out of school.
Where is that?
Southland Motel, right outside of town on 78. Well, the name has changed now, but at that time it was Southland Motel.
Was that that end of town, like where you lived, or was it
No.
on this end of town?
That end of town.
Okay. Is that still there?
Mm-hmm. Still there, but they changed the name.
Is that the motel right there at Glenfield, kind of?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I see. She didn't work there that long because she didn't work too much because she was always in the home. When we came home from school, she always had our meals prepared, our clothes ready for the next day. So, and if we had homework, you came in, you ate, and you were going to do your homework before you did anything else. So I guess that's the reason why we all got a good education.
She made sure of it.
Yes, she did. She made sure of that. And all 9 of us graduated from Ford School. 7 of us graduated from college. And 1 graduated from Gregg Business School in Memphis. And my brother was drafted in service. At that time, we had to go through a pre-primer, and then first grade. And I tell you, I was young then, but you didn't play when in school. When time for you to learn, the teacher was gonna make sure of that. So we just worked, and that was it. Anna Lee Hurd, and she was mean as a hornet. I shouldn't say that. But you were going to learn to read and write. Those were things they stressed, and they were going to make sure you did that. And I guess it really paid off, because all of us finished high school and then went on to college. Most of us. Learning, at that time, the 48 states, we had to learn and the capital of each state. And I think we were 4th or 5th grade then, something like that. And we had to learn to spell it. I will never forget, and I don't know if I can even spell it today, because I miss Massachusetts. And back then, they didn't play. So I had to learn the capital and learn how to spell all the states. And I will never forget that one. But I learned them, and the way I learned them was like alphabetical order, Alabama or Arizona. I learned those states. W.C. Keys, he was, ever since I could remember, he was our pastor. He was there about 20 or 30 years. See, we started in a little 2-room school, and after it was blown away in the storm when we started in the church. Like on Fridays, we had to make sure that everything was cleaned up and in place. And when you go to church, remember, that's not school. That's what they would tell us. This is not school. This is church. So, we kind of got used to it. And we couldn't leave books or anything on the pews or anything. There were 2 teachers.
And how did you get to school?
Walk. Oh my goodness, we had to walk to school. And some days, because the traffic wasn't as bad as it is now, but they finally made a little path through the woods that we could walk, so we wouldn't be in traffic. It was after the traffic began to increase. We had a little path we walked through to get to the church.
How far away did you live from church and school?
I guess it was about 2 miles, something like that. I think the bus was in 55 or 56 when they first got a bus. After they reorganized the school, county school, and all the county schools started going to New Albany. I had to be at school sometime at 6:30 in the morning. My dad had to be at work at 7 o'clock. So my sister and I had to get up early and be ready for school by 6:30. So he would bring us to airport school, and the principal at that time was Mr. Lawson, W.A. Lawson. He would make sure that the building was open so we could go in where it would be warm. So he opened the building at 6:30 in the morning for us to go to school. And if he didn't have it open, he would always tell us to come to his house. And we would sit there in his living room until he went open the building.
Where did Mr. Lawson live?
Right in front of the Beaufort School. They torn that house down now, but he was right in front of the school. And I played basketball, so I didn't get home sometime till 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the evening. I did most of my homework in the gym. Stay there waiting till my dad got off work to pick us up. But later on, my aunt got a car and started driving, and her daughter was in school also, so she would come and pick us up. So I started riding home with her. So I got home a little bit early. It was scary. I remember my grandfather had a storm shelter. And you know how they used to dig them back in the hills or in the ground. So we got it. Well, it was bad that night. So we had no idea that the school building was destroyed. So we went to school. I started to school, and they told us we couldn't come because we didn't have a school to go to. That was frightening. And it damaged the church. Blew out some windows. So we went to school in a house. Our cousin and my mother had built a house, but they had moved to Milwaukee. And they told us to use their house for school. So that's what we did. We went to school, I guess, about 2 or 3 months in the house until they repaired the church. It was 49 or 50 when the storm blew the building away. It was just a little 2-room building.
This was a tornado.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. I mean, it completely just swept it away. It was off down in the woods.
Oak Grove, is it still standing?
It's still standing. And because they moved the church, and Gary Rutledge leased it, and they restored it and used it for a wedding chapel now. Matter of fact, it was in the book, the last book that came out.
So that's your church.
Uh,
But does that congregation still meet as Oak Grove in another place now?
You know, they built a new church right there in the neighborhood where I live. This church, Life Center, on County Road 121.
Does your church ever go and meet in the original building?
I don't know. No, they don't. Of course, you know, the cemetery's out there. And we used to go and put flowers on my mother and Dad's grave. And when we go, we all just gather up out there and just enjoy each other. We still do that. Because that will always be home, you know, where we grew up.
Do you live near there now?
Mm-hmm. Still live there. I built a house in 71. I was working in Missouri, and my grandparents gave us land. So I came back and built a house. And I built the house 5 years before I moved back from Missouri.
Is your childhood home still there?
Mm-hmm. Still there, in the same community where we grew up.
Does anyone in your family live in it?
No, my brother lived in it until he passed 2 years ago. So, it's still there. My dad always had an outgoing personality. Mother was always kind of reserved, you know, had kind of a reserved type personality. But she was going to protect us, her children, no matter what. She was always very protective of us. Growing up, we always thought, Mama's just mean. But it wasn't that. We realized that we grew up and we learned to appreciate it. I was working in Missouri when she became ill, and I came home one week and she was so sick she had to go on dialysis, and I couldn't stand it. I went back and told my sister. I had a sister working in Missouri too, and I told her, I said, I'm going home and take care of my mother. She didn't believe me, but I took off work, came home and put in some applications. And I told myself, I don't care, I can do anything. I can work in the factory or whatever. I'm gonna take care of my mother. I was always a mama's child. So I put in at Benchcraft and some other place. And when I went to Benchcraft and they looked at my application after I filled it out, and he asked me, he said, what do you do now? I said, teach school. He said, well, you need to go to Dr. Bryson's office. I said, okay. I went to Dr. Bryson's office, picked up an application, filled out, filled it out. And when he looked at it, he said, you know, we need teachers. And he asked me what I taught. And I told him I taught first grade at that time. He said, well, I'm gonna send you over to Mattie Thompson. He said, and talk to the principal over there that same day. And when I went over there, talked to Dr. Harmon, and she was really nice. So I went back to Missouri that afternoon, and that Wednesday, Dr. Bryson called me and told me I had the job and I wanted it. So I called my sister and told her. She said, you're not going home. I said, I am going home. So I'm going home to take care of my mother. So I told the principal, you know, that I was going to be leaving. And they had summer school, and they asked me if I would stay and work in summer school. So I did. When summer school was over, that was in 71. I came home. And I worked at Mary Thompson, teaching second grade. And after that, I transferred to Ford because one of the teachers didn't like fourth grade. She'd always taught first grade, so she wanted to change. So he gave me a choice. Told me I could have fourth grade if I wanted, so I did. And that's what I taught up until I retired. And loved it. And you probably know a lot of my students that I taught. A lot of them really achieved and done well. And they don't let me forget when if I run into them, they'll always come up and recognize me. That's the good part about it. I said, well, I must have done something right. Whatever way they could. Some of them had, you know, kind of had parents that would bring them. But they got to school some kind of way. Well, like my dad, anybody that wanted to come, you know, they would team up and come. I think there were several. They were ahead of me that did that. They kind of teamed up and got there some kind of way. I don't know how, but they made it. Yes, we did, up until high school. And I won't ever forget, my dad was working for a man, and he had a crop farm. And it was in October, I believe it was. He said he needed some help. And he told my dad that we were going to have to drop out of school and help pick cotton. And my mother stepped in. She said, no way. Said, if we have to eat bread and water, so my kids going to school. She said, they're not going to stay out and pick cotton. And she told Dad, said, you work fine, my children don't. She said, my children going to school. And she asked him, said, is his kids going to stay out and work, pick cotton? Dad said, I don't guess. She said, well, mine not either. So we didn't. She made sure we stayed in school. And you better be about half dead if you miss school. The only way you can get out of going to school is to be sick. But she was determined we were going to get an education, and it really paid off. I can understand it now. Back then, you know, you didn't think that much about it, but now I understand. But she was determined we were going to go to school because she only got to 9th grade. Now, my dad only went to 6th grade, but he could figure anything. And he did all the figuring, something about cutting lumber and all of that. He did all that. But Mother was good in English and reading, and you know, she was good. And I guess that's why my siblings graduated valedictorian. There were 6 of them that graduated valedictorian. And one was the salutatorian. I was in 4th place because I always played ball and did some of everything. Same with the choir. So, but I made good grades.
Where did your mom go to school?
She went here for 1 year, high school, but she went to Oak Grove too.
When she was at Oak Grove, did it only go to 6th grade?
He went to 8th grade back then.
So she went through, and then she got to go to high school for a year.
1 year.
And then what happened to her?
Well, she got married and started having children. So, that was it. But my dad, when they started having adult education back, you probably remember, what was his name? He was like old. That was teaching adult education in the evening and at night. Daddy went back to school in his 70s and got his 60s. Got his high school diploma. What he did.
Wow.
He was determined.
When did your dad pass away?
2002,
And your mom?
1988. She was on dialysis.
Her kidneys?
Kidney failure. She was a diabetic too. And I came home and to take care of her. And I did. I took care of her up until she passed because I took care of my dad too. Because my sister Ann moved back too. Everywhere I'd go, Ann would come. And then growing up, we kind of paired off in our families, kind of funny. And I was the one that always took care of Ann, my sister Ann. You may remember her because she was on the Board of Education here for one time. And I got the job in Missouri. She graduated from Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. And they were looking for a teacher, and I recommended her, and they hired her right off the bat. She worked in Missouri also. And when I moved home, she told me, "Girl, you're not going home. You're not going to give up your job." I said, "Yeah." Well, the next year, guess what? She moved home too.
She followed you right back.
And got a job teaching. And after that, she took a job with a social worker. She was a social worker, and then she went to Medicaid. She was the supervisor for Medicaid. So that's what she did until she retired. I played sports, basketball, and we didn't have softball that much. We played that out in the county on the wheelbase farm. But we won the district tournament playing basketball, and Ernest Kennedy was our coach. And we would practice every day, during basketball season. Every day after school. And I told you I stayed in practice and didn't get home until late because I was practicing basketball. And I don't know, I just enjoyed it. We just played. We would have a game just about every other week, during that season. So my last 2 years, I was captain of the team. So.
How was Coach Kennedy? What was he like as a coach for y'all?
He was great. He was super. He was hard on us. And he better not see you smoking or anything. And he better not hear telling anybody drinking any liquor. And not too many pops. He was really strict when it comes to that. And he had his rules and things. You be at practice, be on time, and he didn't play around. We would always practice, in the afternoon after school. So I thought they were beautiful. We had green and gold uniforms. And when I saw the marker put up out there. I see it's green and gold, the right color. They had, they had sleeves, but the pants, the shorts had elastic in it. And no, we slip over. We didn't have buttons. The neckline was low enough so we could get it over our head. And those were the kind of uniforms we had.
What kind of fabric were they made of?
Kind of like satin or something.
Were they green or were they gold?
They were green, trimmed in gold. The sleeves were green and the sleeves were gold and, gold trimming on it.
Did you have, what were the numbers made of?
I think they were felt, I believe, back then. I think they were felt. They were different from what they are now because they were stitched on back then. It seemed like they had a little drawstring. They had, they did. They had a little drawstring on them.
And how short were your shorts?
They were short. We had a gym full, it was just an old gym, but it would be filled. Frankly, every game we had good support back then. Because, it was an old gym, and when you come in the door, it's where you get your ticket on the right. And on the opposite side, it was like a concession stand. Right there by the door on the other side. It was tied to the school more because for the trip, like when we took the trip to Washington, my class was the first one to go. And we sold sandwiches and things at school because we didn't have a cafeteria. And Miss Gibson, they had a restaurant downtown here, right back over here somewhere. And she would always prepare sandwiches and make us sometime come and help prepare them. And we did that for lunch and any other activities. We always had refreshments, but they had to pay for it. And that's how we raised our money.
What kind of sandwiches did you make?
She would have bologna, hamburger, hot dog. She'd have all that. No, she didn't have hot dogs that much back then. It was more or less bologna and hamburgers, stuff like that. We used the little building right across from Ford. That was, the Beasleys operated there. And that's where we got our lunch from. We didn't have a cafeteria. And I guess we would always take peanut butter, crackers, and things like that for lunch. And we could go over there and buy drinks and things. We didn't even have drinks in our school. So that's what we would do for our lunch. We'll go over there and get our lunch. Drugstore. I think that's what most of them call it. Going to the drugstore. There were no drugs over there, though. I don't know why they call it that, but that's what we did. I think originally it may have been at one time, but the Beasley only sold like hamburgers and things like that, drinks. And we used to go there and dance because they had a jukebox in there.
At lunch, y'all would go dance?
Some of them would. And after school, sometimes, when we finished playing basketball, we'd go up there and get something to eat or drink and wait sometime for Dad to pick us up there. If he didn't pick us up down at the gym, because I think he stayed open until 7 o'clock or something like that. Muddy Water and B.B. King, some of all that old stuff. Same with the school choir. We had a choir. And Miss Gibson was the director of the choir, and she made me join the choir. I didn't want to, but I used to sing with our church choir, and she knew that I did that, so she made me join the school choir. Sometimes we would have assemblies, you know, like at school, and the choir would perform in school. It wasn't celebrated that much until Martin Luther King. That's when they really started celebrating. We were taught, well, a lot about Abraham Lincoln and the achievements he made and all of that kind of stuff. That was more or less, you know, what we had back then. Because at that time, Martin Luther King started after that. But they did talk about like the Civil War and things of that sort.
So when you were growing up, you didn't learn like about Harriet Tubman or
No, we weren't taught about that in school. I learned more about that while I was teaching, you know, when I first started teaching. Now, when I was in Missouri, they would have what they call Black History. And I had first grade, and they would come down and bring a booklet, you know, with a lot of black pictures in it, and asked us to go over this with the kids and tell what their accomplishments were. But this was in first grade. We had to start doing that then. I had planned to go to college, you know, but I couldn't afford it. My sister was in school, and my parents we didn't have anything. So I went to beauty school at Foster's Beauty College. And when I finished there, I got a license. She got me a scholarship at my college, working in the beauty shop. So I operated the beauty shop and paid my way through college there. When I started there, I learned how to do hair, how to color hair, how to cut hair, how to do manicures and pedicures. It was great.
where was it?
In Ripley, Mississippi. Hazel Foster, she founded that beauty college. I think it was the first black beauty college in Mississippi that she founded. And I finished there, and after she got me the scholarship, I finished college. And when I moved back, she opened a school in Sherman. And I worked down there helping to operate the school in Sherman. But I worked my way through college in the beauty shop in Holly Springs.
Whose beauty shop was it?
Talking about in Holly Springs. It was on the college campus, college beauty shop.
You worked at the beauty shop that was on the campus
Uh-huh.
of the MI college.
Mm-hmm.
And MI stands for?
Mississippi Industrial College.
And that was the other college campus besides Rust.
But you know, at the time when I started, they worked together, Russ and MI. All of my freshman and sophomore classes were done at Russ College, all except PE. All the rest of my classes, and French. All the rest of them were done at Russ College. And my junior and senior year, they all were done back at MI.
So you lived on campus?
I lived on campus in the dormitory,
And you worked in the beauty shop?
in the beauty shop, and I had a key to the to the dormitory, because sometime I'd work until 9, 10 o'clock at night. So they gave me a key so I could get back in the dormitory. I didn't take customers out of town until on weekend because the week was spent, with the students on campus.
How many students attended MI?
I think it's around 500 at the time when I was there, something like that. Because my class, when I first started, my freshman class was 180, I believe, in the freshman class. And we graduated with 135, I think, something like that.
Did that school close?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when?
I can't remember exactly when. I think it's in the early 90s, I believe, when it closed. And Russ College bought it.
What year did you graduate from there?
63. I graduated on Monday and went for an interview in Missouri on Wednesday and was given a contract.
So you got a degree in education?
Mm-hmm. Elementary education. We had some students that attended MI College, and they used to come to the beauty shop. I used to do their hair. And they brought me an application from Missouri. I fill out the application and sent it in, and they come to me for an interview. So I got the job.
Where in Missouri?
New Mandarin. Because I worked in Leoburn School. The school I worked in was Howardville. I worked in Howardville first and then transferred to Leoburn School. But I lived in New Mandarin. My sister Emma was next to me. See, I was out of high school 2 years before I went to college because I went to beauty school. There was Sarah Corinne Turner, Bunny Cooper, which was my classmate, Joan McGee. There were several.
Now, MI wasn't just a girls' school, was it?
No.
Were there a lot of girls at that school
It was.
because of what they offered degrees in, like education? What did your sister go to school to major in?
Secondary education.
Did she also become a teacher?
Mm-hmm. Ruby taught school. Well, she got married, and everywhere she went, she got a job teaching in Puerto Rico and in North Dakota. She worked in those school systems. And my sister Emma worked in Woodland, Mississippi, but she got her master's from Arizona State. She worked there.
Did other members of your family go to MI?
Uh-huh. Ruby went there. Of course, she got her master's at Ole Miss. I went there, Ruby. The three of us went there. But the others, like Ann went to Lane College. Grace, my baby sister, went to Yale first, a prep school, and then she went to Mount Holyoke in Southampton, Massachusetts. She graduated from there. And Emma, she got her master's degree from Arizona State. She had gone there for a visit or something, and then she liked it, and she went back and got her master's from there. And my baby brother Dennis, he graduated from Ole Miss. So all 9 of us graduated from high school at B.I. Ford School, and 7 of us graduated from college. And the other 2, like Shirley, went to business school, and my brother was drafted in service.
Did he remain in the service?
No. Got out as quickly as he could. She was only 16 when she graduated from Ford. And they thought she was too young to, just go straight up into college. So she had got the scholarship. And they recommended prep school. So she went to Yale prep school. And then there to to Mount Holyoke. Oh my goodness. Scared half to death. It really wasn't that bad. We were all concerned about how to dress. What should we wear? What should we take? Because we'd never been anyplace. So, we were just concerned about that. We really didn't know what to do because had never been anyplace. So that was new for us. And when we got there, they had a guide to us, to show us what to do, where to go. On the trips we had been, like my dad drove a truck and he let us ride with him a couple of times. But Ruby and I, but other than that, no, we hadn't been anyplace until then. It was really exciting, and everybody would be up so early in the morning they couldn't wait to go on the next tour. There was always a guide there to tell us what was what and to lead us through it. So we got to see a lot. It was great. I think I know it was over $100-something for each one that we had to pay. And then we had raised money. But we had to pay so much too. But it was worth every penny. I wouldn't have taken anything for that. You'd be surprised, a lot of my classmates had never been out to restaurants and things to eat. And it was something, because there were so few restaurants, decent restaurants that you could eat at, like here at that time. And it was just different. And they were exciting. Some of them say, can we go in there? But it was great. We didn't really see any. And like I said, they had everything already mapped out and where we could go and all of that. So we didn't experience any of that, on the trip.
When y'all would go in restaurants, would you eat in restaurants with, and people just sat wherever they wanted to sit, white and black, mixed together?
They did.
Which you couldn't do here.
No, sure couldn't.
Was that so weird?
Yes, and some of them just, how it is, they didn't feel comfortable. But I remember somebody said, I don't care how many looking at me, I'm hungry.
And then you came back here and it was still the old way.
Sure was.
I mean, that had to be very eye-opening.
Yeah, it was. Not only, when I started to work in Missouri, it was the same way like it was here. And they integrated the school up there. Most of the black teachers left. And when they reorganized the school, they sent all, like, 1st through 3rd grade to one school, 1st through 4th grade to one school. And, like they kind of did them here in New Orleans, the middle school, elementary and middle school. And the teachers that were working at Howardville, which was an all-black school, left. I was the only teacher in Lebanon, black teaching in Lebanon Elementary School.
Why did they leave?
I don't know.
Where did they go?
A lot of them went to St. Louis and Illinois. I think it was about 5 or 6 went to Springfield, Illinois. And then some went to St. Louis. So, but I didn't go any place. I just stayed there. I taught in the first year when they integrated. I think I didn't have about 6 blacks. They gave me mostly all white students. They lived in elementary. But I never had any problem. I had one child, you probably know her too, Denise McKenzie, that worked at B&A Bank.
So how many years did you end up teaching?
40. With Missouri and Mississippi, it was 40 years altogether. I did cake decorating mostly. Well, after I had the carpetona, I had to stop doing hair and cake decorating. But I did both of it. That's what I did mostly when I retired. But I enjoyed it. And I used to do all kind of cakes, wedding cakes, you name it.
How did you learn how to do cake decorating?
I took a class, cake decorating class, and I guess from high school I loved cooking. When I took home economics, my home economics teacher was determined we were going to use recipes. She taught us how to use recipes and how to sew. I used to do a lot of sewing too. So I enjoyed cooking. So that's one skill that I always use, and I can never forget home economics, in high school. And when I saw that building, it was in that little old white building in there on the wall. That's where we took home economics.
Who was your teacher?
Lucy V. Young was my teacher in home economics, and she was good. She was super good. From Holly Springs, she was from Holly Springs. She just passed about 3 years ago. I went to her services.
What did you learn how to sew in high school?
She started us off first making an apron, something simple. And after I learned to use the pattern, I could sew almost anything. I used to make my clothes.
Did you have sewing machines in your classroom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the home economics classroom, yeah. We had sewing machines and stove. And we had to cook, use recipes for different things. It was great. They don't do that anymore. All of them except one. Grace lives in North Carolina, but the rest of them here.
So do y'all spend a lot of time together?
Yes. We all ate out at my house on Saturday and at Ann's house Sunday. And we do that all the time. Oh, I cook all the time. They always in my house eating. And my grandmother used to do that. She had a remedy for everything. That was my mother's mother. She would make teas and some of everything. She did it with us, her grandchildren. My mother was an only child, so we depended on our grandmother for everything.
Did she live close by?
Next door.
What did y'all call her?
Mama. We called her Mama. When I had chicken pump, because I couldn't see. After mother told, they would tell us, put those books down. And at that time, we didn't even have electricity. We just had an old oil lamp. And I loved to try to read and do everything, and woke up one morning, I couldn't even open my eye. If you're talking about a problem, I had a problem with my eye from that, when I had chicken pox. I've been wearing glasses almost ever since. Langford Grocery right there at 78, right there on the corner, 78 Langford's Grocery. He had a grocery store, he had a sawmill, and some everything. She founded the school, and she was the main teacher. But she helped a lot of people, I'm telling you. And then she put in a funeral home. She had a funeral home. She just died about 3 years ago. Her
Now,
son, she had one son, and he's still operating the school and the funeral home. Now, my great-grandfather used to be a carpenter, and he's the one that built our old church, the one you saw in the magazine. He built that. And when they restored it, you can't even find that kind of lumber anymore. Where he got it from, we don't know, but he built it. He was a good carpenter. He built my grandmother's house. He built, well, those were his children, you know. He built both of his daughters a house. And the house that he lived in, he built that one. And after that, my grandmother bought, I think it was 20 acres of land or something. So before she died, she left it to Ruby and I, my sister and I, and that's where we all live. We all built houses. We gave up, you know, for the others. I have a sister, 2 sisters, and my brother. Well, both my brothers used to live right over there. All of us live right there together.